Just doing a quick video here to show you what I've bought slasher-wise over the last few months. It's not going to be everything that I've bought because I'm waiting for some things to still arrive in the mail, and there are a few that I'm holding back for my rarities and obscurity series. But it's going to be the lion's share of what I've bought over the last few months. So we'll start off with some from the Slasher Classics collection from 88 Films, Alice, Sweet Alice. I know this is quite an old one, I think from the 70s, I've not watched it yet, but I've heard some good things, so hopefully I'll like that. Next one, also from that series, is Blood Harvest, from 88 Films, Slasher Classics collection. I thought there might have been some problems with this one, with it perhaps being recalled, I'm not sure. I bought mine from eBay, and I know I did have some trouble with it, with the seller kind of withdrawing the item, but thankfully I'd already purchased it, so he had to send it in the end, but possibly there's some issues with this one. But I think it might be with a slipcase generally, but this one didn't have a slipcase, but still quite rare, I believe, due to these issues, so nice to have it. The next one was a kind of a triple pack that I bought online. It's the Meat Hook Massacre series, the third one there, I think that is. Yeah, that's the second one, and the first one. I've not seen any of these yet. I have seen a bit of this one because there was some clips from it in Camp Blood 5, I think it was. So I've seen bits and pieces of this one, but other than that, nothing from any of the three. But I don't imagine they're going to be very good because they're obviously super low budget films. If you know anything about this series, it's very, very low budget, shot on video type stuff, but we'll check it out. I believe there's a fourth film coming out pretty soon, later this year, so that's why I wanted to get those viewed so I can check the new one out when it comes out later this year. Next one is my Super Psycho Sweet 16-3 to complete my trilogy of these. I've not actually watched any of them yet. I think I might have shown the second one in my last video in this series a good few months back, so still haven't got around to watching that one, let alone this one yet, or indeed the first one. I'm really behind, but trying to get there slowly, but hopefully I'll like that series. Next one, Pork Chop. This is this can be quite expensive to buy now, but I got this one slightly cheaper than what it typically goes for because the case was a bit damaged. Don't know if you can really tell, but the it's kind of held together by stellar tape. You probably can't tell on the video there, but it's all broken. But so I got it slightly cheaper for that reason. Not that I'm too bothered because I've got some spare cases that I can swap it out for later, so it's not an issue. Pool Party Massacre. Surprisingly found this in CEX, which is a kind of a second-hand shop we've got over here in the UK. Seeing that this is again a kind of really low budget independent slasher film, wouldn't expect to find it really in a shop, but I did, so picked it up. Don't think it's going to be too good, but certainly got a nice cover art. I've read some decent things about it, kind of a mixed bag, but we'll see. Next one was the Boogeyman 2 that turned out to be a massive disappointment because it actually wasn't the Boogeyman 2 or Revenge of the Boogeyman, I believe it's might be known as in the UK. It turned out to be something called the Boogeyman Redux, which is just a kind of like a reshoot of the first film with about 5 to 10 minutes of extra footage spliced in amongst it of the director Lommel playing the Mickey character from the second one, where he just talks about he's kind of like being interviewed by the police, and it's basically Boogeyman 4, if anything, as opposed to the official Revenge of the Boogeyman, which is what I was hoping for. So in the end, I had to watch that film on YouTube. So this is a bit of a wasted purchase, but I guess it is different from the first film. It's got this extra footage that I mentioned of Lommel in there, so it is kind of worth having in the collection. But it's not what I was hoping, not what I thought I was getting. So it was a bit misleading to that packaging. Next one is Castle Freak. Found it again in the CEX store that I mentioned, fairly cheap, so I thought I'd pick it up. Not seen it before, but read mainly good things about it. I think it came out just before Scream. It's kind of one of the last slasher films before Scream kind of revived the genre. Check it out at some point. Next one is The Collection. I watched The Collector a while back and then thought I'd get around to getting the sequel, so I finally picked that up. Watched this one fairly recently. It was decent enough. It's a bit more kind of more like an action film, maybe more so than the first one was, but it's decent though, not too bad. Didn't like it as much as the original, but not bad. Next one, I don't really know much about this one. It's quite rare. I've only read one review of this from the guy at the Sticky Red Blogspot. If you're familiar with that website, it's a very good slasher review site. I can't pronounce his name, so I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, so I won't try and say his name, but he's certainly got a good website. The lights, don't know much about it. Like I say, it's very obscure, certainly in hard copy physical form, but let's see what I think of it at some point when I get around to watching it. Can't say much more, so I don't know much about it. This one again was a disappointing buy, Death Bell 2 Bloody Camp. I had to buy 2 copies of this in the end. I bought this one first, but it turned out to be basically a waste of time. It was purported to have English subtitles, but when I actually watched the film, said subtitles were pretty much just gibberish. I couldn't even get the gist of what was going on. They were just completely nonsensical. So I ended up watching the whole film just essentially in Korean, which was a nightmare. So then I had to buy a second copy of it. Thankfully the subtitles here were better. So I did end up watching the film twice, once in Korean, once with the English subtitles with this version. So we got there in the end, or I got there in the end, but it was a longer process than what I anticipated. Final Destination 3, picked that up from CEX, again really cheap. Slowly trying to build up this series, this franchise. I've only got a few of the films in it at the moment. And I've in fact only ever seen the first one, so I need to catch up with this series at some point. And next one is again a franchise, much like with the Meet Up Massacre thing. I kind of bought all 3 at once. Darkshade Creek 3, Trail to Hell, I think that's called. The second one, The Next Night, I think it sometimes might be referred to as, but it's got 2 types of packaging, and this is not the one which has The Next Night on it. And then the original, of course, hadn't heard of this franchise until recently. It was mentioned by a YouTuber, Cali Chainsaw, I think his name is, so thanks to him for making me aware of this one. This franchise, I'll be checking it out at some point. Looks pretty good though from what I've seen in the trailers, very low budget, pretty decent. And the next ones were just kind of me upgrading from DVD to Blu-ray with the Scream films. I found them all pretty cheap, so I thought I'd pick them up. I only had them on DVD previously. Already had Scream 4 on Blu-ray, so didn't bother getting that as well. And indeed Massacre, I had that on DVD, but saw the Blu-ray really cheap, so just thought I'd pick it up to upgrade, as I'm a fan of the film. Big fan. Next one was the double pack from, I think, Scream Factory of Slumber Party Massacre 2 and 3. Never actually seen these, perhaps surprisingly to hear, but it's one of the big franchises from the 80s. I've seen the first one, but I hadn't seen these 2, and watched them really recently. I was quite impressed. They were both very flawed, but they were fun to watch at the same time. Probably kind of like solid 6 out of 10 films maybe. Good fun, if a bit, if lacking in certain areas, but decent enough. Not as good as the original though. And the last one is Truth or Dare. I saw this at the cinema back in sort of, I think it was about April time when it came out. Really liked it. I know it didn't do very well. It got quite a bad reception. But of the films at this, what is it? I can't even see the name. Is it Blumhouse, something like that? I don't know. That's not focusing very well. But I think the studio is like called Blumhouse, something like that. They did Happy Death Day and Get Out. And I think this is. I like both of those films, and I think this one is actually the best of the 3. I thought it was really clever writing-wise. Very good script. It was a lot cleverer than I thought it was going to be, and I really liked it, but it didn't do very well. I guess it's only kind of very loosely even considered to be a slasher film, because it is kind of very much in the supernatural genre, more so than the traditional stalk and slash, but I do consider things like Final Destination to be a slasher of a kind, so if that's going to be classed as a slasher, I guess this does as well. Well, this should be too, but I really liked it, even though it didn't do very well. So I'd recommend it if you're on the fence with this one, not really sure whether to check it out or not, perhaps being put off by the negative press. Then, in my opinion, it's really good, so I'd recommend it anyway. Worth a look. That's pretty much it then. Thanks for watching, and I'll maybe see you in future videos. Thanks and goodbye.